good morning, everyone. Welcome again. Thank you for being here. My name is Michael Cares, Head of Sales, as mentioned. And today I'm going to present to you just some brief outlines of our company, really keep that short, a little bit of our brief history as it relates to digital transformation, and most importantly, what our vision is for the future of AI-driven connected services for government. So AOT Technologies, I'm sure most of you know who we are. We're a Canadian digital transformation partner. We have deep public sector experience. We've done a lot of work, of course, with the government of BC. Many of you here from different ministries are very familiar with us and our work. We are the builders of FormsFlow.ai. FormsFlow is a form and workflow automation platform that was part of a lot of ministries use that platform today. A lot of governments throughout the world through our partner network deploy it as well. We also have developed a next-gen workflow called MateFlow or M8Flow, depending on your preference for language. MateFlow is a Python-based BPMN workflow engine that really enables something pretty exciting, which is deterministic workflows along with agentic workflow execution. So that combination, we think, is going to be very powerful and open up a lot of doors for a lot of people in terms of what you might want to do and how you want to use AI in concert with a BPMN or deterministic workflows. We also have developed a number of products and platforms under the banner of SLED 360. SLED 360 is a catch grouping for modular, reusable, and customizable open source platforms that we offer to government organizations to help expedite processes. We're taking advantage of developed products that just need to be shifted and lifted and modified and can be redeployed with tremendous value. Canadian content, of course, tremendous value, and very flexible platforms. We also deliver practical and secure AI solutions. So it's been a part of our foundation, and effectively what we sit at the intersection of digital service delivery, workflow automation, and agentic AI, if you want to encapsulate, kind of who we are. Let's talk a little bit about AI transformation, and to do that, we need to look back at the last transformation. It looks so lame now, doesn't it? It used to look so exciting when we were there, and now with AI, it's like, wow, we really have a long ways to go. And we were part of Transformation 1. FormsFlow was a big part of that transformation. Forms, portals, and automation, all good stuff. But where we're going now is Transformation 2, and Transformation 2 is a game changer, of course, and I think everyone has a sense of it, but I hope I can convey to you maybe some of the flavor or put some meat on the bones, if you will, to what, all the things we're hearing and seeing. So the first concept is we want to be context aware, and I'm going to get into the details of these concepts in the next slide, so I won't elaborate on them, but it's all about the who, what, and the where. And then we have AI-assisted submissions, which doesn't necessarily have to be a form in the future. Now, it might populate a form at some point for affirmation, but form concepts are shifting, and the entire perception of how you actually engage and interact with government can dramatically change. And then being connected and governed, which really relates to being proactive and with consent. So let's go a little further into some of those in practical applications and what those mean. Let's talk about the citizen world. I think that's always we all experience that, the pain of navigating. I think the biggest pain of navigating as a citizen is the first point, is the educate and navigate. I got to figure out what you want me to do, what I need to do, where I go, what the rules are, and figure all that out. Then go find the places to get that information. I then have to often re-enter the same info more than once. I have to deal with long static forms. I have little to no assistance and little transparency. Kind of I pushed it out there and I'm kind of wondering what happened after the fact. I think we can all relate to that. And that's just a reality in terms of when you're engaging with forms and processes. What does the future look like? What do we envision for that future? We really envision guided journeys. So I don't have to know anything about government. I just have to talk to a chatbot and say, I want to do this. And the chatbot can become part of that who, what, and where. I know who you are, I know where you are, and now I know what you want to do. And the agent can then deliver and bring to the fore of that user all the context required. And it could even be additional context, unknown context, opportunistic context. And then dynamic data collection as well as pre-filled forms. So once they're authenticated, we have the ability now to fill in data that's already known. Why would we ask the user for all this information? We have reams of it. Let's populate it and get them to confirm it. And then when they're in trouble or they're struggling with something, let AI help them and assist them. And lastly, of course, visibility. That's that instead of a black box, it's a glass box. You can see where things are. You'll understand where things need to be and what the next steps are in the process. And now the back office, that's the important side as well. It's equally as important, maybe more so sometimes. Today, there's a lot of rekeying of information, switching systems, searching of policies, manual triage, and of course, everyone faces SLA pressure. I work with ministries today, and we're doing some AI work, and it's all around that exact problem. It's the backlog of the SLA, and how do we get AI to give you automation and decision support to get higher throughput with the same amount of staff. The future is really different from that. It's a unified operational view rather than having to switch systems or rekey data. It's about context-rich case files. It's about providing AI summaries so you get a context summarized for you very rapidly for rapid decision making. Working with natural language and also meeting service levels effectively. And this means that staff don't have to, especially when you're retraining, don't have to learn the systems and the nuances and how this one works versus how that one works. You're just talking natural language now and letting it connect. Now, what makes all this possible are a number of key components. One of those is common components, and that's a direction that the BC ministries and government has taken a direction in already, and we're really proud to be a part of that common components effort. You need to have common components. You need cloud-native services. You need secure APIs, context integrations to bring it all together, natural language to simplify the experience, and governed access. And really what our vision is one of orchestrate, not replace. You have these tremendously powerful systems of record. They're very, very large systems. They're very, and what we can do is bring them together through these technologies to give that kind of value at a very rapid method, a rapid timeline and method. So the hard question becomes, how do we use AI in a highly regulated environment? And our answer is controlled intelligence inside governed workflows. And let me say that again. I want to repeat that. I think it's important. Controlled intelligence inside governed workflows. And what that really translates to is, first of all, we need to manage things with a deterministic view to the world. We can't just let AI run, havoc and decide what it wants to do. There's things that have to happen in a very predictable fashion. So we still want to maintain deterministic rules. We want an audit trail. We want a human in the loop. We want it to be explainable. It needs to be secure. And we need to follow policy with zero trust, while gaining the benefits of AI at every point in the process flow that you're working with. So whether that's support, information, the summaries, the things that I spoke out earlier, you still need these foundational elements running through the entire process. I'm going to turn it over to Adam now. Adam is going to walk you through a real-world use case and a scenario to kind of give you a vision of these types of principles being applied in the real world. Adam?
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So I'm Adam. I'm going to be doing kind of a part 2 to the talk. I'm going to be kind of giving an example of controlled intelligence and deterministic workflow. And I'm going to be getting slightly more technical, but don't worry, don't have your eyes glaze over. I'm not going to be showing code, even if you're non-technical. This will still be valuable. So first, I'm going to be talking about MCP, talking about kind of these deterministic workflows we can add to it, and then I'll be giving that demo. So what is MCP? MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's a standard that all the major AI labs have adopted that basically give LLMs what we call tool calling. So we use StackLock's ToolHive as the foundation for this. It's great, check it out. And MCP, you could imagine as an example, one might be like a Gmail MCP. And with that then, the LLM is capable of querying Gmail. And you could ask a question like, what are the last 50 emails I have? What's the highest priority? What needs to get addressed? What hasn't been responded to? And now it has the ability to go query, get that information, and give a response. This is a bridge to all that functionality. While we have talked about a Gmail one, you could imagine we could create a custom MCP that connects to a government queue or something like that. But of course, we want guardrails on top of this, but it can connect to anything that we can programmatically access. One of the common paradigms and examples, analogies you hear with MCP, they use it themselves, is it's like USB. It kind of connects between the models and the tools. And the nice thing, because it's a standard all the major labs have adopted, you don't have any vendor lock-in with these. As newer models come out with higher levels of intelligence, you can just swap them in, and all of your MCP integrations you've created, maybe to existing services, those just work. So yeah, that's basically MCP, which we think of as like the bridge between the AI and the tools. But more than just a bridge, we also want guardrails. And that kind of gets to Michael's points about these deterministic workflows. So if it's a bridge between the LLM, the AI, and the tools, what is it actually a bridge between? And it helps to think of software as kind of these two rough camps. We've got the traditional way of doing software, which is the way we've always been doing it, where you write your code. If you have the same input, you get the same output. It's reliable, but it's not really that dynamic, right? If you have cases of, for lack of a better word, dynamism, you've coded those in. You might have a drag and drop website builder, or you might have some workflow decision making, but those might be configurable, but they're still kind of deterministic at the end of the day, right? And with traditional software, if you want to update it, you need a human being, usually a programmer, to update it. There are low code solutions, but those can sometimes be limited in some ways compared to everything else that's out there. With AI, we have a more non-deterministic approach. You can give the same input and you can get different answers from an AI. LLMs have this thing called temperature, which is basically how random it is when it's generating that next token. And while you can drop that all the way down to 0 and get a lot more deterministic results, if not perfectly, you also wind up basically lobotomizing the model when you do this. You don't get the creativity that were kind of why we're using the AIs in the first place. So that's kind of part of the value from them and an inherent to the solution. And one of the key differences with AIs and LLMs specifically is text is a first-class citizen. If you use a chat bot, you can just go up there and type. You don't write code for it. But similarly, it goes more than that. If you have human-readable policy documents, they might be written by BSAs, by non-coders. These can still work as rules for the LLM. Again, text is a first-class citizen here for it. So MCP basically provides a bridge between these two, but we do want more guardrails right? We don't want to just connect a LLM with MCP and then connect it straight to our database and oops, it deleted the database, right? You can have those limits in the MCP itself, whereas maybe it can only read data, it can't delete data. But we think that in a more robust workflows, you can also have guardrails with a deterministic workflow engine. So these would be things like it could create audit trails. It could have certain decisions require human approval before they kind of get submitted. It could dispatch sub workflows. It could send emails out, whatever is necessary for the solution. And I have a demo coming up here, and the core of the demo here and the purpose is really to show the approach, the philosophy into what Michael was speaking, kind of that intelligence within guided deterministic workflows. The goal of the demo is not to say, here's the one true solution, here's what everything should look at. It's just tools to begin to understanding the philosophy of embedding these LLMs with sophisticated workflows and minimizing risks by having workflow or having guardrails for that. So let's see if this plays, and I'll turn it over to the presentation.
Hey, so here's the demo. So we're showing up workflow here, but we're going to be showing up.
Can people hear that? No? I can mute and just speak to it, I guess. All right, I'll mute, so at least, sorry, I wasn't expecting the sound not to work. But so this is AOT's OpsFlow that we're demoing here. And again, we're gonna be showing off two basic applications that the tabs have at the top. One is OpsFlow, it's just how we're dispatching the agents and working with the LLM. It has integrations with the MCPs. You can see that right here. We have MCP connections to M8 Flow, to Jira, Clockify, HubSpot. We don't have Gmail connected, but you could and then have that functionality I talked about. And the other application, which we'll get to in a second in the demo, is M8 Flow or Mateflow, which is a lightweight Python-based deterministic workflow engine here. So I'm just going to jump forward a second. Oops, that jumped me forward to the next tab. That's not what we want. So here's what the process, a deterministic workflow process, looks like for M8 Flow. So I've clicked into an example. In this example, we just have after the AI, the LLM is done its workflow, it will submit it to this deterministic workflow that we see here, where the idea is that it's sent to a security team, which is humans, who then review it and can give an update whether they're approving or not approving the flow. And this is a standard diagram markup for business process management engines. So there's other ones out there as well too. But here, if we jump back to the application, we're going to start a task here, which is going to call MCPs. And then after those MCPs are called, we'll eventually go to that deterministic workflow. And here is an example of the documents that we have. Because remember, text is a first-class citizen for LLMs. So in this case, we have a company offboarding procedure, which will be brought up in a second, which is just human readable text. It's a PDF at the end of the day. And the core point is that anyone would be able to update it. If you can write text, you can update it. And we can see in this document here, it's very simple. It's straightforward. It describes what the document's for. It's about the offboarding process. That's what our demo will be. We're imagining we're offboarding an employee. And then it gives two kind of subheadings there. One, the actual steps. It's going to go to Jira and remove the user. It's going to go to Clockify, which is what we use for time tracking, and deactivate the accounts. And then as a final step, it's basically going to double check its work. It's going to dispatch that as a second step, just make sure things actually were done as it said. And then after all that's done, then it would go to the deterministic workflow engine. Now, it's you can configure all these to match the workflow you want. Maybe you would only want Jira and Clockify to get removed after human review. Maybe you want it before and then it's reviewed. That's all configurable. Again, we're just kind of showing the style of approach here. So if I, in this example, click assign a task and I just say, I want to offboard an employee. In this case, I'm being intentionally vague. I haven't mentioned who the employee is. I haven't given enough answers. But the reason why I've done that is to show like, look, it can kind of help identify these issues, do a bit of requirements gathering for what's necessary here. So it's saying, hey, look, you need to actually go ahead and give a name. You could imagine this type of flow being for users too, as they're navigating government services. Perhaps they're a bit unclear. They haven't provided all the information they need, but this helps. So here, I want to offboard Praveen. I've also been intentionally vague by not giving a last name here, because again, it's an iterative process sometimes of getting all these requirements out. But as it's doing this, we also have a bunch of different little agents, different LLMs, who are kind of doing the different steps here. So we'll see that in a second as we get responses. So we see this response that's come up here is the orchestrator. The orchestrator is basically like the boss. It orchestrates the agents. It tells the other agents what they need to do. And then it sends out other agents that do the work. So one of the agents it's sending out here is the HR information agent, which will then look up documents for it, which can be scheduled, again, human readable policy documents. And we can see in a second there, as it loads up that policy document, and it says, here's what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to be, and this is the actual kind of under the hood, showing the actual tool calls, where it queries the knowledge base, finds the appropriate policy documents, then outputs it in a human readable manner. So we see there, we've got the actual MCP call, in this case to Azure's knowledge base there. Then we have here's the process, and we even see at the bottom of that, it shows you what source it's using, what PDF, what human readable policy document it's using there. Okay, that's great. Jumping ahead a moment. Now it's saying, great, I know what policy I have to do, but you haven't given me all the information. We haven't selected which Praveen, so we say which Praveen we're going to be saying goodbye to here, and then we submit. And now at this point, the flow has everything it needs in order to make the changes. So it's going to go in, it's going to go to Clockify, it's going to go to Jira, it's going to deactivate the accounts as we've specified, and make those calls. And it could be, you could imagine many different other MCPs and services attached. We just use Jira as an example here. And we can see it gives a summary, what's completed, nothing failed, but if Jira was down, we would expect to see Jira at the bottom. And it gives kind of an overview of that user here. You know, here's the projects they've worked on, blah, blah, blah. And then we can see, again, those are the MCP calls at the top, which are actually the networking calls that are taking place in this case. And then it will say, if you see at the bottom, now that this is done, and this is just how this workflow is set up, it could be set up differently. that after this is done, it goes to a human review for a security review for a team. In this case, imagine a different user is now reviewing these actions. And again, all of these pieces can be moved around. If you wanted the review to happen earlier, that's doable. Nothing of this is locked in stone. But now we jump back to the other tab and we go to that deterministic workflow, where then it's going to require human validation. So basically, this workflow that we saw in front of you has been started. So now if we jump to kind of the tasks open for the security team, we can see one at the top that was a minute ago, recorded at the demo there. And if the user brings that one up, they can see all the information that was basically there earlier. They can approve the decision, yes, no, put some comments in, but that's the same information that was shown on the other screen. And again, all of this stuff is configurable. In this case, we just have a simple approval, looks good to me. But in other cases, you could imagine it sending off audit emails or requiring multiple levels of approval or what have you. At this point, we can come back to OpsFlow. We can see if we click refresh, it will pull in our changes there. It says, yes, everything's good. You've approved. So yeah, that is basically the demo there and showing the moving parts that we have in place. So again, the goal here was not to say this is the one true solution and how everything needs to get built. Instead, it's about here's the philosophy we have. How can we adapt these tools in ways that we have guardrails in place? What do those guardrails look like? What does a deterministic workflow for these look like? Lastly, I'll say that the exact way we do the solution can vary depending on whatever problems we have, right? So I've got a personal project that I've used that's just not too dissimilar from this, and that my grandfather was a World War II Spitfire pilot, and he flew over in D-Day, and we've got all these logbooks of every single time he took off, where he took off from, where he landed, as all pilots have to keep. But I wanted to digitize this and make it like an interactive story for family members to use rather than just dusty logbooks. So I created a system with a human in the loop that would use multiple AIs to transcribe every page row by row, have multiple ones do it, come to a consensus among them where they agreed, notes where they didn't agree, and then built a custom review screen, basically, where I could have the image on one side, the digitized transcription on another, and quickly go through and review to make sure everything was good. Now, this is a lot smaller of a project. It's just something I work on evenings and weekends for my family, but it's that same rough idea that we have, that we're using AIs. It was even doing tool calling and things like researching relevant dates to find nearby operations and things for the war. But ultimately all still going through human review to make sure that everything was satisfactory. So yeah, that is basically the demo. If you have any questions for me or Michael, if you have questions for me later about Spitfires or anything, feel free to ask. So yeah, any questions? No, I think we can turn it over there then.